everybody, welcome to the Watch Pals. My name is Chris, and this week we're going to be talking about the movie Crank High Voltage. But before we do that, let's meet the panel of pals. And first, I want to welcome Brian to the show. Brian, how you doing?
Good, Chris. How are you on this fine, outstanding day?
I'm great, and I'm thankful you're here.
I'm thankful for you, Chris, and I'm thankful for the films that we get to watch together.
As pals.
As pals that love watches.
Jeff, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm okay, I guess.
Did I say Jordan or say Jeff?
You said Jeff.
Well, in that case, let's welcome the sad clown of the pals. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
He is Pagliacci.
He just cried for 3 hours before we started recording.
In any case, before we get started with, before I turn it over to Brian to talk about and recap Crank High Voltage, because this is his week, I wanted to do another segment of Get to Know Your Pals, and I want to ask you, each of you, what is your favorite series, not movie series, but television series or Netflix series, or whatever you want to call it. What is your first number one at this point in your life, not when you were a child, but right now in your life? What is your favorite series? Could be anime, could be whatever series. I'm going to go first to just to give you guys a second to think. So my favorite series, and I have two of them really, and I can boil it down, but the first one is The Americans, which is an amazing series because I really like the Cold War spy angle that the series has. It was written really well. It was on FX. An amazing show. Everybody should go watch it if they have the time. I've watched it a few times because it's just one of the best shows ever. But my most favorite show, and I've mentioned this before, I know all you guys know, is Dark, which is a German show that is on Netflix. It's an amazing series. It's written extremely well. The last season wasn't the best, but I still really liked it. They wrap it up. The reason why I like it so much is they wrap it up so well, and they tell a time travel story that makes a lot of sense to me. But it is German, and the directors of that went on to write and direct another show called 1899, which got canceled after one season, which is a shame because of the spin that they put on it. It was extremely well written, but they didn't really give it a chance to grow. But it's one of those cost too much money type of things that they've done in the past. So the answer to that is, for me, is Dark on Netflix. Brian, I'll go to you next. What is your favorite series right now?
Favorite series of all time. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of like big series, all these like Netflix, HBO. My favorite is The Wire. That is the best series I've ever watched. And if you haven't watched The Wire, it's about the Baltimore Police Department against the drug users, or the drug dealers, I guess you could say, over like four or five seasons, I think. But they tackle a lot of different things in each season. They focus on the police department in the first season, then they focus on the drug dealer side in the second season. They moved to the working class down at the docks in the Baltimore area in the second season. Then they focused on the school system in the fourth season, I think, and then the news. Again, one of the best series I've ever seen. If you haven't seen The Wire, check out that series.
Jeff, what about you? What's your favorite series of all time?
I have no idea of all time. I'm not going to be able to answer that right now. I would need way more time.
What's your number one series then?
Yeah, that's the same.
Same question.
I'm saying, okay, let's just say this. If you had to say, hey, Chris, watch a series, what would the series be?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I have no idea. I will say, here. I'll give you the one I'm most excited about right now, just because it's the only thing I can think of. I watch a lot of anime. I'm super into Jujutsu Kaisen. I know that's kind of like the Kool-Aid, drinking the Kool-Aid of anime right there, but I liked it so much that it kept getting spoiled online by people reading it that I was just like, I'm just gonna have to read this now to catch up because I keep seeing spoilers. And I don't know, it's just like typical shonen anime. It's just done really well. It's cool. That's not my favorite of all time. It's just the one I'm kind of like excited about seeing what happens.
Okay.
I guess.
No, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. I mean, obviously people can have lots of, like, I really like The Expanse, which I think is an amazing show. First 2 seasons sucked. It was on Sci-Fi, and then it got bought by Amazon. It's an amazing show. Again, I just had to say one of them, and that was the one I picked, was Dark. But I would say, something depending on the day, it might be The Americans, it might be that. Mr. Robot, amazing show.
You know what? I've heard great things. I also want to watch Shogun. I haven't started that yet. I hear amazing
That's
things.
great.
I loved Game of Thrones aside from the end, just like everyone else. So that would have been
The Bear.
The Bear. I heard was really good.
It makes me hungry watching that show.
But Mr. Robot on USA was an amazing show. It sucked because they got cut short, it seemed, because Rami Malek got too famous. But and it has a scene in one of the series, I think it's the 3rd season, where they're in this building and there's an alarm going off and these 2 people are talking, and it's like it makes you so tense because they use the alarm going off during this like really somber scene of these 2 like people talking like about something super serious, but this alarm's going off and it's just super tense, like the most amazing scenes I've ever seen put together, assembled in this like crazy show, which everybody should take a look at. But Jordan, what do you got? What is your favorite series?
I don't know, man. You kind of caught me off guard with this. But off the top of my head, I'm going to say Cowboy Bebop is up there.
Yeah, my man.
Great choice.
I mean, yeah,
It's great.
that's my favorite of all time anime, I would say, as far as series goes.
It knew when to end. It didn't go on too long.
Yeah.
Great characters. Another one is What We Do in the Shadows. That's a great show.
Fantastic show.
So good.
Yeah.
And movie, too.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. I need to watch the movie because I know that they have some of the characters from the movie show up in the show.
Over into the series. Yeah.
The movie's not quite as goofy, but it's still good. Like you see, it definitely set up the groundwork for the series. The series is fantastic. Yeah,
It's really good.
I'm sad it's ending.
But again, like I think they know it's another series. Like they know when to end.
Yeah, if it goes on for like 5 more seasons, it could probably start to get pretty old. But it's good when they know how to end it, so they don't ruin it.
I know, like you're sad it's over, but it's like ends. I would rather it end well and then fizzle out and be like, oh, what was that?
You could it's also could have that situation what happened with what's that one show? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It happened like a few years ago where they all of them got individual deals in other shows, and then all those other shows sucked, and they all came back eventually. Like it was a weird thing with like 2 years where it was like they were in the show, but then they weren't. Like one of them left in the show.
And with Dennis,
yeah, it was so weird.
He went to go on to do Crank.
Yeah. That's right. And Dennis is in Crank.
What a great segue.
And one other thing off the top of my head, I really like Band of Brothers. I thought that was a great
Fantastic
little
series. Yeah. One of my favorites.
Never seen it. Anyway, let's move into the impressions of the movie Crank High Voltage. Let's begin with what you thought of before watching this movie. And Brian, I know you brought it up, so let me start with you on what you thought of going into watching it or watching it again, if you'd rather talk about that.
No, it's okay. The reason I picked this movie is because and we'll get into, because I want to ask you guys a question about what your favorite Jason Statham movie is in a minute. But Jason Statham is one of those actors that just kind of like fell into that action role that I don't think anybody expected when he first started. Like not to say that he was a bad actor or anything, but when you saw him in his first couple movies in these Guy Ritchie like British crime movies.
Was he in Lock, Stock?
He's in Lock, Stock.
Okay.
He's in Snatch. And he's in a couple other Guy Ritchie movies too. But then at that point, he started moving on to become an action star in The Transporter. And that kind of just springboarded his career into like these kind of movies. So the reason, and I saw the first Crank movie and I loved it. I thought it was a great action movie, especially for Jason Statham. But it did some different things with like the plot and like the tone and everything. But Crank High Voltage is it's taken to the extreme in every aspect of the film. And we can get to that in some of the points of the plot and what the characters do and everything. That's the reason I picked it. There's not many movies that I think that directors just have full like carte blanche with like budget, writing, everything. They're just like, guys, go nuts. Do what you want to do with the writing and these characters and the filming and just give us the finished product. And that's, when I saw this in the theater, man, it just kind of like made me laugh a lot of times how far this movie went. So that's the reason I picked it this week.
Jeff, what did you think about? What was your impressions going into Crank High Voltage?
So I vaguely remembered the first one and remembered it was super action packed. And I do remember, I think I liked it. I mean, I just remember it being like constant, right? The whole premise was, hey, this guy's to keep going or he'll die kind of thing. So I expected more of the same in 2. And upon watching it on the second one, there's a lot of callbacks to stuff in 1. And, Brian was like, you don't have to watch the first one to enjoy it, which I do agree with. But I think I kind of do wish I did watch the first one after seeing it again. Or not again, seeing the second one. So, yeah, my impression was I kind of expected more of the same, I guess, from the first movie. Just really high intensity, action-packed. But since Brian was so adamant about watching the second one, I figured there had to be something like extra about it. So,
Jordan, how about you? What did you think about it prior to watching it?
I don't think I ever saw the first one. Maybe parts of it, but I also thought the plot of this guy has to keep his adrenaline going or else he's going to die. I thought that was like a pretty cool thing for like an action movie, like that makes it for something cool. But yeah, I don't think I ever saw all of it. So the second one, I was like, do you still need adrenaline going, or like what's going on with that? So yeah, I didn't really. I knew it was an action movie as well, but I have come to like Jason Statham. Like I liked him a lot, and the Expendables, those movies, along with the Guy Ritchie movies they was in. I didn't think it was going to be anything like, Oscar worthy or anything like that, but the premise seemed cool to me. I'll just say that.
Yeah, for me, I think I was in college at one point, and I saw the scene in The Transporter when he was fighting guys in the oil with like the things on his feet.
Yeah, he's sliding on the oil slick in the garage.
And so that whenever I was in college, that was like a scene. Everybody was like, check out this scene. And we're all like huddled around a little computer, downloaded the video, and it's like watching this scene of him beating up guys. And so I never really was a Jason Statham fan. So prior to this, when you said when you said Crank High Voltage, I had no idea that it was the second movie.
Same, yeah. I was like, I was looking for it. I was like, wait, is this the first one or the second one? Because some things at times it said 2 in like the titles, but sometimes it didn't. So it was weird.
In fact, I didn't think it was. In fact, this is jumping ahead a little bit. I didn't know it was number 2, the second movie, until we talked to each other today on text message saying that it wasn't.
And I don't think they marketed it that way either. Like when it initially came out in the theaters, they didn't have the 2 in the title. It just was called Crank High Voltage.
What year did this come out?
I want to say 2011,
8 or
maybe?
9. Oh wow!
No, it was a 9. It'd be 9.
Okay, we'll look that up. I'm gonna say continue that. I wasn't I was just like, oh, this is a action movie. It's Jason Statham, who I didn't really I wasn't a fan of, and going into that, I wasn't expecting much. I was expecting a typical action movie of the era of like late 2000s, which I thought around the time it was when I looked it up. So that's what I was figuring. The impression was just a simple, silly action movie that was of the time. And remember seeing the commercials for Crank back, in the early 2000s, late 2000s of the first movie, which I thought these were the same movie. And so I was expecting something. Back then, I remember seeing these commercials being like, that looks stupid. I'm never going to watch that. And that's what I was expecting. Something silly that I really wasn't going to enjoy. But I won't jump into what my feelings of it after the fact until later. What year did it come out? Did you guys look
2009.
2009.
2009.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But before I turn it over to Brian, I'm going to just say right at the top, content warning. We're going to be talking about violence, sexual violence. We're going to be talking about situations that are of the adult persuasion, drugs. We're going to talk about, we're going to be swearing. So please, if you're sensitive to any of that, please go ahead and turn this episode off. Move on to the next episode, the last episode. We try to make sure that some of them do not have that explicit warning, but this does have an explicit warning. So please take caution and know that before you proceed to the recap. All right. Well, let's jump into the recap. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian for that recap of Crank High Voltage.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so just leading into this movie, this is the sequel, technically. So all you need to know going into this movie is that Jason Statham is a assassin in the first film that was poisoned with something called quote, the Chinese which slows down your adrenaline that'll eventually kill you. You have to keep up your adrenaline so you can keep the poison out of the receptors in your body and not die. So that in the first film, he was going all through the city, keeping his adrenaline up to not die. Okay. And so all you need to know leading into the second film is that he had a fight in a helicopter, literally jumped out of the helicopter and fought the villain midair, broke the dude's neck, threw him midair, landed thousands of feet onto a taxi or car and bounced onto the concrete.
So that's how the first one ends?
That's how the first one ends.
Okay.
And you see him lying and looking at the camera and blink. So you think he still might be alive, right? So basically, the second film picks up where the first film leaves off, where he's hit the concrete and he may be dead. A group comes, shovels him, literally snow shovels him off the concrete into a van, which turns out to be some sort of like Chinese triad gang. They've kidnapped him and they threw him into a warehouse. Okay, so at this point, he's still alive and his heart's still beating. So they want to take the beating heart inside of him and put in an artificial heart. Now, you might be asking, why are they putting in an artificial heart into him if they're just going to take the heart out and get rid of him? Because there's other parts of him they still want after they take the heart out. Okay, so they take the heart out, they put the artificial heart in, and we run into our first side villain of the character, this Chinese triad character. I forget his name off the top of my head. He has a lot of nose piercings.
Johnny Vang.
Johnny Vang, thank you. So Johnny Vang's always carrying a little thermos box with him, just around with him everywhere. He's taunting Chev Chelios, and that is the name, by the way, of Jason Statham's character. You will hear a lot in this film, "F you, Chelios." In fact, they display it quite a few times on the screen. So at this point, they remove his heart, put in the artificial heart. They want to farm him they harvest him for parts. So the first thing they circle on him is his dick, right? He
has that in that picture too. They drew in the
there's
on
a
the
diagram.
paper.
Yeah, they circle his dick. That's correct, Chris.
Yeah.
So they circle his dick. They go to farm him. Jason Statham is awake at this point, audibly says "F that," and grabs the one triad member, chokes him out with hospital wire, like some kind of like hospital equipment wiring. And the other member, how does he kill the other guy? I can't remember. Can you guys remember?
He stabbed him with a needle or something like that.
Is that in the neck? Yeah, so stabs the neck with a needle in the hospital. What are you going to say, Jeff?
There were like literal like cartoon sound effects though, and he was like hitting them though, which I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, you're boing? Like,
and we'll get to that in the next couple scenes too, because there's a lot of like weird artistic cuts in this movie. There's a lot of stuff they tried in this film. Whether it works for you or not as the viewer, that's up to you.
I want to say that this is the second movie that the human male penis is large on the main character.
Yes.
Second movie you chose. Okay. I just want to point that out to everybody.
Another fun fact. This is also the second movie we've watched that has Lloyd Kaufman in it.
Oh, that's right. Is he in this one?
Very briefly, yeah.
A lot of cameos in this film, too. A lot of big and B movie and A-list celebrity cameos in this film. It's kind of weird. So, but yeah, at this point, Jason Statham, he gets out of the warehouse. He's looking around, runs into a few gang members, runs into a big guy, and he's looking for Johnny Vang because Johnny Vang at this point, he thinks he has the box that has his heart inside of it. He needs to get his heart back. Okay, so he's running on an artificial heart at this point. He doesn't know all the details. Runs to the gang member, takes a shotgun, okay, makes the gang member bend over, pulls his pants down. And do you guys remember what happens here?
Oh, yeah.
So not only does he put the shotgun directly into the man's ass, but he lubes it up with some oil he found in a bucket nearby. Literally cranks.
At least he lubed it up.
Yeah. Right, he did give him a little.
Somewhat of a gentleman.
Yeah, he jams it inside of him, asks him for the info, tells him that he's hanging out the Cypress Social Club.
Yes.
Which is a house not far. It's he could get there driving, but it's kind of far on foot at this point. So he's starting to feel the effects of not having a real heart. You can see him throughout the film, and this happens in the first movie too, where his energy levels drop and he just starts to slow down. This is kind of like picking up.
He has the box on him.
Right, I was going to say, so go ahead, Chris. What does he have on him that's powering his heart?
He's wearing like a battery pack that has lights on it to show how much battery power he has left.
Right.
So some type of power pack.
Right, and it's a little power pack that has a number of lights depending on his power level. It's like 1 to 5 green lights. And that's another big thing about this movie is that the first and the second film have a lot of video game references because Chev Chelios, Jason Statham, is just a video game character in this movie. He's just trying to survive each level as he goes. He's just blasting random people. He has to keep powering himself up random ways. That's why, the movie is so on a stupid level that it kind of works. But anyway, so that being said, he shoots his way through some gang members, gets to the house, meets the next character on his journey, which is the girl, the woman Rio. Did I say her name was Rio or Ria?
Wait, you forgot to mention the car race.
Oh, that's right. So he picks up a car to get to the Cypress Hill Social Club. At some point, the car gets so jacked up from a firefight that he just wrecks into a pole.
A barrier.
A barrier
Jersey
in
barrier.
the side of the road. Okay? So some guys, some dudes on the side of the road want to street race him. They want to help him out. They're like, "Are you okay, buddy?" And he's like, "Yeah, can you tell me where the Cypress Hill Social Club?" They point in the right direction, but they said it's kind of far on foot. He goes, "Can you just give me a jump?" And they get out of the car and they look at his car and it's completely totaled at this point.
Because he flies through the windshield.
Yeah.
It rips off the battery pack.
Barrier.
Yeah, it rips off the battery pack. Like out of nowhere.
Oh,
it's
that's right.
Flies out the window, rips off the battery pack.
Good
And
point, Chris.
He had to call his friend, the doctor, to see what this device was, which is Dwight Yoakam.
Dwight Yoakam, the country star, is Doc Miles, who is his off-brand, underground medical, black market doctor that helps him out. So basically, yeah, his battery pack breaks, and because of that, he has to keep charging this artificial heart to stay alive at this point by any means necessary in the world.
And he said that there's a battery backup in his body.
Right.
There's like a second battery in his body that other pack was charging.
Right. But he has to keep juicing it in order to stay alive.
Yeah, I think he had like an hour on that second.
Yes.
On the second little guy.
Yeah.
So he asks the guys with the car to give him a jump and gets jumper cables, to which he attaches to his nipple. Like in the film, you can see him actually do this, and his tongue, and they start to rev the engine to juice up his heart. This gets him pumped and goes into a cut in the next film. And they do a lot of these cuts. And I want to ask you guys about this, where they go to the Google Maps shot to the next location and his running shots. So his running shots are these weird, Jason Statham, when he's going from location to location in this film, does a lot of these weird 360, juddery, fast moving shots where he just looks pissed off or he's just rushing to the next spot, right? So just a fun fact about these kind of shots, they used a lot of handheld cameras in this film that you could kind of get high end, but not as much as the last film, not as expensive. They wanted to do this because they rode rollerblades around Jason Statham when he was running around to get these 360 shots so they could blend them together. So if you're wondering just why those shots look so weird, or there's so many there's a lot of just different zooms and things in this. They use a lot of comedic, like you said, cartoon sound effects. The soundtrack was done by Mike Patton of Faith No More and a million other bands. So if you know Mike Patton, he's a super weird dude. He did the entire soundtrack. All right, long story short.
The cinematography of this movie is perfect for the tone.
Yeah, it's manic. It puts random images on the screen and random zooms. Some of them are hilarious. So if you enjoy that kind of humor, this is right up your alley. He gets to the Cypress Social Club. Cypress Social Club. Meets up with the next character. Johnny Vang is not there, but he meets an Asian woman called, I think her name is either Rio or Ria. She speaks very broken English. And she's actually another famous actress, called Bai Ling, who's been in a lot of...
Was she in The Crow?
I don't know. She was. I think she was in one of the Crow films. She's also
Rhea.
was in
Rhea is her name.
Rhea. So essentially, Jason Statham is just tearing people apart looking for Johnny Vang. Runs into Rhea. She was in The Crow. Thank you, Jeff. And saves Rhea's life in the process. Rhea is a little disconnected. She doesn't really speak English well. She doesn't really speak sentences well. But she's obsessed with Jason Statham for saving her life for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So she starts to follow Jason Statham and points him in the direction of where Johnny Vang is, which is the strip club.
Naturally.
Yeah, of course, that's the next destination. And a lot of this movie, and I want to ask you guys what kind of vibes you got from it, but other than the video game stuff, I got a big Grand Theft Auto vibe from this because of all the different kind of characters he runs into. And just the ridiculousness of it, like the tone of it. Because it's like this, almost this heightened reality or just exaggerated reality where it's the real world, but these characters are just being so ridiculous that everybody's just acting out of their minds. Like people are just getting ripped apart, cops are chasing everybody everywhere, that kind of thing. So
I like how they have this like kind of the action, like the I don't know if it's like the flow of the movie is like really, again, high energy, like where you have like where he's juiced up, the movie gets real crazy with all the action, and then it slows down as he starts coming down. And they're kind of keeping that momentum as you go. But when when he saves Rhea's life or saves her, he runs into the building and starts just throwing people through walls and stuff. Like you just see from the outside of the building people flying through windows and walls and stuff. Like guys,
I was
going
to
to
ask you guys noticed that. Did you guys notice that there's like a few heads and arms that fly out of the windows?
Yeah.
Yeah, just randomly. And there's like random people running on the side of the house that are just like in costumes.
And it shows like Johnny Vang running away, but the guys are still flying through the walls. Like it's like they've just bought an old house and were just throwing people through walls. They
just had people just keep getting tossed, right?
And then Rhea like beats the dude's junk with a bike.
Oh god!
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, good lord.
She beats his junk into a bloody pulp with a bike tire on a bicycle.
But yeah, I was also going to say that like there's some very Grand Theft Auto vibes because like, he gets launched through the windshield of his car and he's like, okay, I'll walk from here. Like you do it like you would in the video game.
He just gets up and dusts himself off.
Yeah.
Like he keeps surviving somehow.
Yeah, it's super grindhouse film for sure. Like that's the vibe immediately.
Super like it's like F you cinema. I hate to see you be so graphic, but it's like that's exactly what it is. So he gets to the strip club at this point, runs into his, I think if I remember correctly, it's only been like 3 days since he has been officially dead in the news since he hit the pavement. So he runs into his ex-girlfriend, Eve. And Eve is stripping at the strip club, and she just picked up this job within 3 days of him being supposedly dead.
I thought they said it was 30 days.
Was it 30 days? I thought it was only 3.
Maybe it
was 30, but
I can't remember.
Yeah.
So
that's Amy Smart too, which I was like, oh, right, she's in this. I didn't remember. Did not remember
from Road Trip and a couple other big movies.
She arguably has one of the most gnarly death scenes of any person ever in that Mirrors movie. I think. Horror movie. Which
is the terror thing.
Yeah. So maybe we'll watch that someday. That one, like, you know, there's a lot of horror movie kills, but that one's just like, whoa.
Yeah, and again, this gets back to the whole thing of like a lot of like decent, a lot of A-list or B-list celebrities you'll see in this movie in the same spot. I think it's his last film, or if it isn't his last film, it was next to last, was Corey Haim from the 80s. From, I don't know if you remember Corey Haim and Corey Feldman that were in the Lost Boys and things like that. So Corey Haim is the guy with the fake mullet and the Hustler t-shirt. That's calling his girlfriend Eve Lemon. It's essentially Corey Haim is the strip club's manager or owner, and he picked up Jason Statham's girlfriend Eve as a stripper within like the time frame of Jason Statham being away. So picks her up. Again, huge firefight because people are coming after Jason Statham. They're looking for him for unknown reasons. Jason Statham is trying to get his heart back into his body, and there are other gangs pursuing Jason Statham at the same time, trying to kill him for unknown reasons at this point. So some of them show up at the strip club to take out Eve and Jason Statham, okay? Or Chev Chelios. So this introduces the next faction, which is the Mexican faction of the gangs. And they're in the back room cutting off with Johnny Vang, by the way. So I should get to that point. So in the back room, Johnny Vang is at the strip club. The Mexican gang has him. They're punching they're punching the blood out of his mouth at this point, asking him where Chelios is, and chopping off their friend's elbow.
God, that was
like
horrible.
Calling it, you want some sushi or something like that, and chopping off the man's elbow.
Johnny Vang was like, "That's Japanese. We're Chinese." Whenever they said that,
He goes, Torito or whatever he says to him, but he says that, and then he says, "We can make a deal," after seeing his friend's arm get chopped off.
oh, that was just the elbow, just the tip of the elbow too.
And it was really graphic too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
would suck so bad.
so big shoot up at the strip club at this point. Jason Statham escapes with Eve.
Hold on.
What? Yes.
We cannot gloss over the being shot
Oh my god!
and like,
Oh yeah,
and they're like oozing out the implants.
Okay.
It's
So
just like,
do you want me to go over that?
Jesus.
Let's go over that part. So
I mean,
during the
that's the part,
shootout,
yeah.
during the shootout, one of the strippers picks up a gun and her implants get shot.
I think all the strippers are getting shot at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, Everyone is getting
everyone's
shot.
getting shot. But one of the strippers' implants gets shot, and it looks like I don't know if you guys remember a Stretch Armstrong toy growing up. If you were to break that open, it's the same silicone that was coming out of her. It just was pouring out.
Yeah. So yeah, but then it pours out, and you're like, and then a couple things happen, and then they cut back to it, and they're like deflated and still pouring out, and they just keep showing it, and I was just like, Jesus Christ.
So after that, they leave the club. Jason Statham and Eve and another random stripper that just happens. Oh, I forget why, but she's handcuffed. Oh, that's right, because the cops showed up outside of the strip club, and they're trying to get everything in order.
Rhea's jumping on Jason at this point though, and or
Smooching
before
him.
the shootout, and being like, "This is my boyfriend," and she's like, Amy Smart's like, "What the hell?" And like,
What is going
that's a
on here?
Yeah, and then Rhea, I think, gets knocked out or something.
With
Rhea gets
beer bottle to the head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So she's knocked out. Eve is naked, topless outside with electrical tape on her nipples, with another stripper that's just obsessing over her for some reason. And then the cops start to attack Jason Statham, who is fighting them. Jason Statham is getting beaten down by batons.
yes.
And starting to lose his steam. But what gets him back? What gets him
Tased.
juiced back up? He gets tased. So he goes into Hulk
He doesn't
mode
get
and
tased.
starts.
He gets a stun gun. Tase is the
well-
thing with the little barbs.
Okay, so he gets stun gunned. Okay, so he gets stun gunned. He starts beating the crap out of all the other cops and steals a cop car with Eve in the backseat and this other stripper.
I feel like that is very much of the time because he would have just been shot if it's like recent times. Like
Yeah.
they're just beating him with batons. Like what is this?
Yeah, so he just, again, though I don't think there was a cop in this film that pulled out a firearm, was there?
The one lady did, I think.
Oh, what? But I don't know, did she actually use it or something?
No,
Okay.
I think he pulled out a
No.
gun too, and she put it down.
Okay, so no cops actually fired in this movie. That's actually a fun fact. So at this point, they're in the cop car. They're moving. He's stunning himself in the tongue and the crotch to keep his energy up. And Eve is in the back seat trying to get uncuffed while the other stripper is just smooching on her and just licking on her for random reasons.
Being a sweetie.
She's being a sweetie on her. So
Sweetie.
too much of a sweetie. She gets elbowed in the face, right? Gets knocked out and gets the key and gets uncuffed. So at this point, and if I'm remembering correctly, you guys are going to have to help me. They run into the crowd, which is the porn stars striking.
Oh,
Yes.
God. Yeah.
Ron Jeremy's there.
Ron
There are
Jeremy.
there are all actual
hedgehog.
porn stars in this movie or in this scene yelling at the car. So basically they run to a riot of porn stars fighting for better wages. And
Yeah, then the other cop car pulls up, right?
Okay, yeah. So at this point, is he running through? I'm trying to remember if this is leading toward the racetrack or if this is the park where he runs into.
The park is before the racetrack with the dog collar.
All right.
Yeah.
So
But
let's
he's
get
on
to
his
that.
way to the racetrack, though.
Okay, so they get out of they get through the porn star strike, and they get out of the cop car, and he's on the run at this point from the cops, like on foot.
I think the girl in the back of the car said Johnny Vang goes to the racetrack. Somehow
That's
he finds
right.
out he's at the
The
racetrack.
stripper says that Johnny Vang is hanging out at the racetrack, so he's heading toward the racetrack at this point, abandons the cop car, and goes on foot.
Leaves Amy Smart behind.
Correct, in the cop car.
Which happens a lot.
So he's running at this point and runs. He's running from the cops and runs into the park. He runs into these two characters that have bought an electric collar for their dog. Now, these two guys, if you didn't know, and I don't think we were talking about this before that we were recording, are actually the lead singer of Tool and the guitarist for Nine Inch Nails. So they're both testing an electric collar on I assume their dog. Jason Statham shows up and sees this and realizes he needs another jolt, right? So he tells both of them he's from PETA Control, and it's an illegal. I forget what he says to the two guys, but ends up putting the electric collar around his own neck and says, "All right, press it then. Yeah, press the button." I think. Did you guys hear the sound effect of him farting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, after a few presses, he gets a few jolts from these guys and farts a few times and gets moving. Steals the remote for himself and starts running. And at this point, the dog has moved on and is biting the of one of the cops directly that is chasing Jason Statham. Other two cops see this, keep moving, right? So at this point, Chev is trying to get to the racetrack to get to Johnny Vang, but the Mexican gang that's chasing him also has a leader that you don't know too much about called the Ferret, El Huron. Okay? So the Ferret is looking for Jason Statham for unknown reasons.
Is this where they show an actual ferret and it's like looking at its balls or something like that?
That's later on.
Okay.
Also, they you missed it in the cop car.
Yes.
She says something, and she's like, I saw you fall off the plane on the internet on YouTube, and he's like, you're on the internet now? Like it was like a thing of the time.
That's
but
true.
She has a cell phone hidden in her butt, and she gives it to him to call the doctor again, who keeps on coming up over, and he's like, I'm a heart surgeon. I can fix you. Just get your heart back.
That's right. So thank you for bringing that up. So Doc Miles is his black market friend. He's talking to him about his artificial heart, and he's realizing, okay, there's something going on with the Chinese gang and why they want Jason Statham's heart. So he starts to look into why they want his heart so bad, or who may have abducted his heart. And he comes up later, but the person that wants Chev Chelios's heart is the leader of the Chinese triad gang, whose name is Poon Dong. And Poon Dong is the late actor David Carradine in Heavy Makeup.
Heavy Makeup.
And it's his final film.
Ugh. That's his final film.
Pretty sure.
Oh, boy.
So just watch it, folks. You'll see why we're reacting the way we are. So David Carradine is Poon Dong. He's after Chev Chelios's heart. Okay? At this point, Chev is at the racetrack to get Johnny Vang. He's still after the heart, still looking for him. He runs into Venus. Venus is the brother of a friend from the first film, and I know this is the backstory stuff, but this was a friend of Chev's named Kalo. Kalo was a friend.
Twins, right?
They're twin brothers. Yeah, the twin brothers, because when he first runs into Jason Statham, he's a little shocked. He's like, Kalo? He thinks he's dead. But no, his name is Venus. He's trying to avenge his brother's death. He doesn't know who. I think he doesn't know who exactly killed his brother, but he wants to help Jason Statham avenge his brother's death because they were friends.
Because he just pulls up out of nowhere on a motorcycle.
On a motorcycle to help him.
Yeah.
He also has some.
The cops just like let him do this too.
Yeah.
They're
just talking for a little bit. Yeah.
And he has some kind of disorder.
Yeah, he has some kind of disorder that makes him jerk violently at random
He said
times.
it was full body Tourette's.
Full body Tourette's, and he basically like just goes into like Michael Jackson mode and just starts like jerking around at the most inopportune times for this character. Okay, so they both go together to the horse track. He gives them a ride to the horse track. At the horse track, he has to come up with another solution to keep his energy up. He's starting to lose his juice again. So he realizes from the doctor that friction could help him. It's another like simple way to keep the energy up. So he runs into this random guy at the horse track and starts rubbing up against him quite violently. That is another cameo. Do you guys want to name who the cameo is?
Old Chester.
Yeah, old Chester.
The late Chester from Linkin Park, one of the singers from Linkin Park.
Chester Bedingfield, is that his name?
Yeah. So he was in the first film as well, in a little cameo. But anyway, Eve arrives at the horse track and realizes she has to help Chev out because he's losing a lot of steam again, and basically he needs help. So
she helps him, all right.
She helps him. She helped him in the first film, and she helps him now. So they begin to have sex at the horse track in front of everybody. And I think it's both the friction aspect of it and like the thrill of it happening that's just getting his blood pumping. So they start having sex. They move down onto the track itself and start having sex.
This is when I said, this is like a Mr. Bean movie, because he's kind of just ping-ponging and stuff. He's like, oh, they happen to just fall over the railing, and then this happens. It's like...
Did you imagine Mr. Bean having sex?
Jeez.
My exact point was
this is wonderful.
He's ping-ponging around the entire movie, just being like pushed into
in these situations.
Yes, and it seems like when he starts losing energy, he starts turning into like this, like falling into things that do something that lets him get shocked, and then
like he keeps getting away with it somehow. Like life keeps letting him get away with it.
Convenient.
And that's kind of like why he's like a video game character as well. It's like he just keeps continuing. So they have sex on the horse track. He gets his energy back up. There's a wonderful shot of a horse jumping over and his huge horse in slow motion. So keep an eye out for that, folks.
Again, Brian movie.
This is part of my list. So Chev sees Johnny Vang and again leaves Eve behind again at the horse track. Right after they had sex on the horse track, leaves her in the dirt with a bunch of horse poop.
And she gets washed away by a big fire hose.
That's right. They just... I forgot about that.
I love that like someone tosses out a cowboy hat and he's just waving it around as they're banging on the racetrack.
And she tosses out... Or I'm sorry. He takes off her panties and tosses in the crowd, and some guy catches it in his teeth and they all cheer. And that guy, you can see that guy in the news report later when they're like reporting on what happened at the racetrack. He's like pointing at the panties and dancing in the background and stuff in the crowd. But anyway, spots Johnny Vang, chasing Johnny Vang again when he gets picked up in a limousine. And a limousine.
Wait, there's a whole thing with them. Johnny Vang again getting away from the same guy on the tallest parking structure ever, because they keep on going down level by level. It's like how many levels does parking structure have for this whatever racetrack? Thank you.
He's running after him on foot. Go ahead, Jeff.
There was one of my favorite jokes of the movie was as they're doing this, they eventually go back to like there was this old lady he rubbed against too.
Yes,
that's right. To get friction. And she was like, "Oh, he was all over me, blah, blah, blah. He looks like that guy from the movie, that train spotter fella." I was
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty funny.
Brick house.
A brick house, yeah.
So, he chases Johnny Vang again on foot while they're in a car. Johnny Vang escapes his grasp again, and he gets picked up in a limo. The limo has another gang leader named Don Kim, who helped him out in the first film and basically bailed him out of like a rival gang, like helped out in a shootout at the end of the film. So Don Kim tells Chev about Poon Dong needing his heart, and that he just wants to use, because Chev's indestructible and he survived that fall and all these deaths, that his heart is essentially indestructible, and if you have his heart, you become indestructible. So Poon Dong has obtained Chev's heart for that reason. Chev thinks Don Kim will help him, but Don Kim says, no, I'm just going to go to Poondong and deliver you and get the money for it. So
Poondong.
amazing shootout, like a 30-second shootout with an Uzi in that scene. Go ahead, Chris.
Is this when they tell you that the reason? Did you just say that they went the heart for this because he survived the poison?
Yeah, he survived the poison and the fall and all these like potential deaths. That's okay. So he kills Don Kim and all his henchmen in the car, and they wreck the limo. He gets out the limo and has to juice up again. Goes over to a power junction box just on the street, rips it open, and just blows the out of himself.
A high voltage box.
High voltage box. That's right. You see a few marked boxes in this movie that say high voltage.
And also, that's what some other guy comes up to something like about being on crank.
Oh, that's right. So, yeah, just little drops.
57 minutes in, he says the movie. The guy's like, "Oh, you on?" It's like, I guess I don't. Maybe it's another famous guy. He comes up, he's like, "Are you on crank?" And then he like pulls off the high voltage thing and does it.
That's that guy that was another cameo drop. The guy that said, "Are you on crank?" was a Ultimate Fighter. I couldn't tell you.
He looked like a UFC guy.
That guy was ripped. So yeah, he was a UFC guy. So at this point, Chev's juiced up, starts running again. Venus calls in another character from the first film, Orlando, who has the red mohawk, to help find the ferret that's after Chev, the Mexican gang that's tracking down Chev, because the Mexican gang killed his brother. So Venus is calling, again, if you haven't seen the first film, this might be very confusing, but they're calling each other just to basically go after the ferret, who's the Mexican gang leader. So Chev gets on an ambulance at this point, still after Johnny Vang for his heart. And at this point, he gets the belt battery pack he needs for his heart. He gets the video game upgrade for his heart, which is going to juice him a little extra, right? So grabs that from the two ambulance drivers.
Because they're working on one of the guys he just got shot in the limo, and they're like trying to keep him alive, and his like guts are hanging out, and they're like, "Nah, don't worry about him." Yeah.
So he juices him up, leaves the ambulance, and at that point, is it another shoot? Jesus Christ!
Yeah, because Johnny Vang's walking out of a store. Rhea gets hit by the car.
Oh, right.
Whenever she sees him,
there's sure shoes flying off too.
Yeah. She just keeps getting messed up during this entire film trying to follow him. Johnny Vang's on the street. A shootout happens before Chev gets a hold of Johnny Vang.
Because his buddy in that same Honda car that he's been in the entire movie drives away from him, and they're just running on foot.
Yeah. So they run it. Okay. So now they run into one of my favorite scenes of the film, the kaiju scene, where Johnny Vang and Jason Statham are fighting in an electrical. It's like what's the word I'm looking for? Electrical station. They're like an electrical station.
Yeah, a substation.
Okay, yeah. So there's just a bunch of boxes and electricity hubs around them, and they're fighting, and it cuts to this dream sequence where they turn into these two Godzilla-like kaiju monsters.
So weird. I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, Jason Statham has an exaggerated forehead. Oh, exaggerated bald forehead. It is.
Looks like a Neanderthal.
They're like just doing the big slow punches at each other. They have little fake toy workers like screaming at them and everything.
So the toy worker, when they cut to the real worker, that's Lloyd Kaufman, the one guy.
Oh, that's right.
Guy,
so that's the trauma guy. So okay, so the toy worker's Lloyd Kaufman. Okay, so cut back to Johnny Vang. He finally gets a hold of the box. He's been chasing after Johnny Vang this entire film. He looks in the box. They don't show what's in the thermos box, but it's not his heart. And all Jason Statham says is, "What is that? Oh, that's fucking weird. That's disgusting." And he doesn't know what it is. What is your guess? Do you think anything was in the box? Like, if you had a guess?
I'm surprised they didn't show something.
They're pulling out like a Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction,
yeah.
The briefcase
or maybe
thing.
His friend's piece of his elbow that got cut off, maybe.
Well, yeah, I was thinking either the elbow or maybe it's like some weird, like, it's like his like twin brother in there, like his fetus or something. I don't know. It's keeping him on ice. But so it wasn't his heart. Johnny Vang immediately gets shot in the back of the head as Jason Statham is pointing a finger gun at him, which turns out to be the one Mexican gang leader, Chico, to take him over to the ferret, El Huron.
So real quick, I looked down, like I saw him point at his head. I looked down for some reason, and then saw that his head got shot. I was like, oh, are they like? Is he juiced up so much right now? He just shot lightning in this dude's
bolts.
head. Yeah,
You're
but
right.
like that wasn't the case. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. If they
Right
did
before the
that.
kaiju scene, they had that scene where him like doing the Thor thing with thunder coming down to his, or lightning coming into his hands, and you're like, oh, come on.
It was like the Ernest movie where he gets the lightning powers.
Ernest goes to jail.
Yeah.
The other thing we skipped through was that guy's name, the guy that just shot him.
Oh,
Chico.
Chico, yeah.
Or he gets his nipples cut off.
He has to cut off his own nipples.
Oh, I don't know if you guys want me to discuss that.
Well, I'm just mentioning it. Like he's already mad
mean,
at Statham because of that.
So at some point in the middle of the film, the ferret is trying to get a hold of Jason Statham, and he sends out Chico to get him, but he's failing to get him. So he makes him cut off one of his nipples.
Both of them.
So both of them and hand them to them or something, or just drop them on the floor.
And you really don't know at this point why they want Statham.
Right. They don't say why they want Jason Statham, just that the ferret, this gang leader, wants him. So Statham, Chev is knocked out at this point, and they have a hold of him. Doc Miles, meanwhile, is using his secretary to lure Poon Dong, David Carradine, into his clutches so he can get the heart back for Chev when he finally gets a hold of him, right? So at this point, Chev is kidnapped by the Mexican gang. Doc Miles is pursuing Chev's heart, and they've pretty much got Poon Dong in their clutches at this point. They've sexually lured him in at this point with her juicy rear, So
You know.
So Chev, they have a really interesting scene while Chev is knocked out, a kind of a flashback scene to his youth to learn more about his character.
I like that.
And that's when they kept saying they kept putting on the screen the Chev.
Chelios.
Q Chelios.
Yeah.
So that's, again, you see that phrase, Q Chelios, in this a lot. They say it a lot. His mother, did you know who his mother was?
Ginger Spice.
Ginger Spice.
Really?
There you go, from the Spice Girls. So she's playing his mother on a talk show. They're talking about just Chev's violent behavior and the fact that he's just aggressive all the time. Okay, cut to Chev waking back up, and he wakes back up to the lair or the beachside mansion of the ferret, El Huron. Okay, so El Huron is waiting for him, and it turns out, and again, this is another reveal from the first film, but it's so ridiculous that you see when you see it. El Huron, the ferret, is the brother of Ricky Verona, the man that he killed at the helicopter at the end of the first film. So the whole reason that the ferret's been going after him is to get revenge. And there's another big reveal of what his motivation is, I should say, of why he brought Chev Chelios here. And do you guys why did the ferret bring Chelios to this beachfront property?
Oh yeah, his brother's head is in the tank thing.
Yeah.
So
gotcha.
The villain from the first film is still alive. His head is in a tank, and he only brought Chev Chelios alive there to whip him in front of his disembodied brother's head in this water tank.
His Walt Disney head.
Who's being kept alive.
It's hooked up to tubes, and it's just bubbling, and it has a robotic voice, and it's like, Chelios. It's amazing. So the eyeballs are moving and everything, and it's watching them. So then at this point, Venus, Orlando, and Rhea show up as backup to help Chelios. They start attacking the ferret's gang. And at this point, there's just so much going on during this melee. So everybody's just fighting everybody. Chelios gets a hold of Ricky Verona's the disembodied head and pulls it out of the tank. And I forget what he says exactly. He goes, "Oh, you need a drink, mate?" Or something like that. And
I thought he wanted water. He kept thinking he's saying H2O.
He goes, "Oh, you need some water." Oh yeah, that's right. He's like, "Water." So he goes, "Oh, you need a drink, mate?" And he's like,
Spits on him.
Chelios. He spits in his disembodies head's face, kicks it into the pool, rips out all the tubing, and kicks it into the pool. And then he starts to fight El Horan, but he's starting to slow down again, so he needs to get juiced up. And he sees the high voltage sticker again, but he sees it on top of an electricity pole nearby with a whole junction box and everything. So at this point, he's doing like the Rocky climb up the junction box to get juiced up. And you can tell this is just a little bit too much for Jason Statham, because he gets juiced up, but he's starting to hallucinate. And he's also on fire at this point.
Yeah, that was another thing. I was like, what is going on?
Isn't Venus from Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah, so Venus, the actor that plays Venus is his friend, Pedro. Vote for Pedro.
Oh, okay.
Same actor. So, amazing dude. So, I want to say his name is Efren Ramirez, if I'm right. But, so he's fighting, I think he survives, right, at the end. I remember he gets caught in, like, the full body Tourette's in the middle of the gunfight when he's fighting somebody. But
he busts out some nunchucks at some point.
That's right. He gets real badass, and they do the 360 camera on him, but then he goes into full body Tourette's, and the nunchucks go flying into the ocean. So Chev comes down from the electrical pole at this point. He's completely on fire. He kills El Horan by just punching the shit out of him and throwing him in the pool with his brother as like a fitting end, right? And then during the hallucination, Rhea comes up to him wanting to give him the smooches again. He thinks it's Eve.
Oh, yeah.
And goes up to hug her and embrace her. And it's kind of like this heavenly scene, right? So during this scene, he sets her on fire and she runs away. To which point, we're coming to the end of our film. Jason Statham, completely on fire. He is actually starting to deteriorate and melt from the flames on his face and body. Turns to the camera, to which, and I'm saying this by the camera, I mean the audience, the people watching, you, the viewer, and flips off the audience with a flaming middle finger. To which point the film begins to burn, and then we hit credits.
That was such a crazy thing. Like, I was like, what? Another movie just cutting straight to credits.
But then, but through the credits, then you see more
Which
stuff.
I honestly thought they just ended the movie like that.
Yeah,
I was like,
same. I was like,
are you kidding me right now?
Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
I was just going to say, but then I noticed there was like way too much time left for just credits. So I was like, all right.
But even then, even the credits didn't really fix it.
No, they just kind of they left it as a teaser, basically during the credits. And spoilers, if you've hit this point, anyway, you've listened this much. They put the heart back into him at Doc Miles' apartment, and they do the closed eye thing where he's lying there and his eyes open. So they were going to do, when 3D movies were a thing in their like heyday a couple years ago, they were going to do originally a Crank 3D or a Crank 3, but it either didn't get the budget or they couldn't get the funding for it or whatever happened. Yeah. I
saw the box office for this one did not do nearly as well as the first one. So
right.
I'm guessing.
Well, the first one I think was a lot like it was everywhere, like commercial wise. I remember back then I was like, why do they keep promoting this movie? Because I was like, I thought it's such a stupid idea, stupid premise. Not ever seeing it, but like I remember seeing commercials for it all the time.
I think it was a Sony movie, so at least I don't know if the sequel was too. I think it was, but I'm assuming when Sony saw the final cut of Crank High Voltage, they were like, all right, we'll put this out, but we're going to put this out during like some off month or something. Anyway, that's Crank 2 High Voltage or Crank High Voltage, however you want to say it. What did you guys think of watching this film?
Yeah, so let's go into our feedback for this. So let's start with you, Jeff. What would you think of Crank High Voltage?
With me. I'm torn on Crank High Voltage because there are parts that I genuinely liked and thought were really fun and funny, and then there were parts where I was like, I don't want to say getting bored, but like there was almost too much going on that I was just like, wait, hold on, I had to like stop and rewind it.
Overstimulating.
Yeah, ultimately it was, I enjoyed watching it. I don't think I'll ever want to watch it again. I didn't realize how many cameos were in it, so like, and now hearing that, that kind of also explains to me why the acting was all over the place, because like half of the people aren't like actors, right? They're just famous or musicians or something else, porn stars. Geez, it's tough because I don't want to give it a thumbs down, but I don't know if it's got a thumbs up. I enjoyed it, but it's just I feel like I remember liking the first one more. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm at with the thumbs up, thumbs down yet. You're just going to go
come
on to
back
someone
around
else
for that.
Yeah.
Go back around for that.
All right, Jordan, you want to give your feedback for Crank High Voltage?
No, thank you.
Perfect.
No, it reminded me a lot of Hardcore Henry. Did you guys ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Love that movie. Yeah.
And that
it's
also
another
reminds me
favorite.
like very video game. That was all done first person. And I was like worried about watching. I remember worried about watching that because I was like, would that be too jarring if it's all like first person view? But it ended up not being the case. But this movie, kind of remember the same. It wasn't first person, obviously, but like I got like there's times of like I have to pause because like I didn't get why they did it. Because like Chris, you were saying earlier, like the way they shot it was reflected his like energy level. Like when he got like electrically charged, but like it was so jarring at times. I was just like, this is making me nauseous. Not nauseous, but I was like, am I gonna have like a seizure or a stroke from watching this? So there's like times I was like, I can't, like I didn't really like it because of that, but I understand why they did that. It was for the effect. Like you're supposed to like be feeling what he's feeling and supposed to like mimic what he's going through as far as like every time he got juiced up. The action in it was great though.
Yeah, I
Like-
agree with
like,
that.
Like, and there's times it's like really, really silly. I think it knew, it kind of made fun of itself. It knew, like they knew what they were doing. Like they made it so. There's certain times they made it silly intentionally, and I think that worked a lot of the time. But that's I'll just say that for now.
Well, Brian, you want to go next?
Yeah. So when I saw the first film originally, like again, I was a Jason Statham fan, but there was this movie goes to extremities in both comedy and violence. So if you don't have the stomach for it, you probably shouldn't watch this movie. But if you enjoy the absurdity, like if you've seen a lot of action films and you enjoy the absurdity of it, but you enjoy the tongue-in-cheekness of it, you'll probably like the Crank series, because Crank it knows what it is. It's a ridiculous action movie. In the first one, they took a concept where a guy has to keep moving, otherwise he dies by the end of the movie, and then they killed him. And then they asked them to make a second one. And they said, well, we're just going to run with it and just going to do whatever the hell we want. So that's why it's so ridiculous, and that's why I like it. So I enjoy it because it's both an absurd movie that they did well enough that it stood out, and it has enough decent actors in it that it just stands apart from the pack for me.
I'm gonna have to say that again. Didn't know about that. Never watched the first one. Didn't even know there was a first one. That this wasn't the first one. I knew there was a second one, but I didn't understand the process I didn't understand the lineage between them. I think they did a pretty good job as a movie, saying there's probably people that are gonna not see the first one and see this one. I think they did a pretty good job of like filling in some kind of gaps, not really explaining things so far up front, so you're kind of confused on like the backstory until later. Like the thing was like, why do they want his heart? Well, it's because of this poison thing, which they tell you like an hour into the movie. But again, it makes sense. The whole thing with Venus's brother, obviously that's just like his brother died. It was killed by this thing. You don't really know that he was in the first movie. You don't even really need to know who was in the first movie, but you know that Venus was a pretty good character. Had a purpose, and was I think well acted and everything. I did think that watching this with the kind of thought of like how the energy level of like being overstimulated the whole time was kind of a little rough at some points, but I think in general, if you didn't, at some point I just turned off my brain on thinking about the story and was just enjoying it for like a stupid action movie. It was fun to watch because it was so crazy. Like it's like they took the movie, like they edited it, and they were like, okay, take out all the stuff in between that's not high action. Like take away all the stuff in the middle that you like, any low parts, just delete it. Who cares what it says? Who cares and they made it fit all together. And I think that was really well done from keeping the high energy theme of it. But there's so much stuff being thrown at you at all the time that It seems like he's always hitting things, getting thrown through a window, and so you have to really take the absurdity level of like, this guy is just a video game character. He is just indestructible, and just it's not about a weak human. It's just like, here's the most badass, assassin ever, and then he's gonna just basically do everything at all times.
Suspension of disbelief.
Right, like you just have to take it with like the action level of like, this is just an action movie. Just enjoy it for the action movie. And I think
action for the sake of action.
Right, they edited it for that. They edited it for like.
There was a scene which we didn't. I don't think we got
Which
into.
one?
It wasn't initial. It wasn't like part of the story, but I guess there was. It was a kind of a throwback to the last movie with Glenn Howerton.
And what's her name? Lauren Holly from Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. I was like, what is this? But he's gonna get shot because they should probably
keep building it up.
I forgot who shot the gun, but like they show the bolt ricocheting.
Yeah.
Then you arrive in this like this therapist's office. And I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? I was like, clearly they're doing this for like the comedy of it,
right?
Like the absurdity. Like he gets shot in the head, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a new man. I'm gonna take life by the hands." But she's like also like creepily like
saying
coming
a bunch
onto
of
him
dirty stuff,
and like kind of getting off saying stuff.
She's like, "Go to a bar."
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
And he's just like, all right, I'm a new man. He stands up, just dead, shot in the head.
Instantly headshot,
by this ricocheted bullet. And then she throws up on the camera.
Into the camera.
I'm like, what is this?
And that's one of those things they throw in there. They take away all the like, obviously it's from the first movie, I guess. Like, you don't need to know that, but they took away all like the lower stuff of like, it's not supposed to be like a somber part where you're like trying to feel for this guy. It's just supposed to be just for comedy. And I think that's like, this movie is all about high action, naked chicks, and stupid comedy. Yep. And that's what they were going for. It seems like they were successful, but I guess not successful enough considering how much money they made or whatever. But I think in general, it's just a fun, dumb movie. All right, so let's move into our ratings now. I'm going to go around, and I know, Jeff, let's go with you last. So let's go to Jordan. What do you give it? A thumbs up, thumb down on Crank High Voltage?
Man. I'm torn.
Not going to hurt my feelings, just say it. We do this for a reason.
Yeah, it's just your personal preference.
No, originally I was like, no, thumbs down for sure. And then, then I kind of I sat on it for a little bit. I'm like, okay.
Sat on your thumb?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I know I sat and like dwelled on it, and I was like, like, again, because like originally I was watching it, I was like, I can't, the cinematography and like what they did with like the camera and like it's just so jarring. I was just like, this is too much.
Brian, what do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I mean, obviously I'm gonna say thumbs up because I picked the movie, but and that's all I'm fucking saying. No, I'm just kidding. Cut all out. No, I'll say thumbs up for the movie because I thumbs up because I picked it, but also because it's one of these movies I think that in all of the action movies of especially Jason Statham, it sticks out of the herd. In a row,
that's very true.
In a room full of Jason Stathams, this is the prettiest.
The prettiest
Jason Statham. Okay.
Or the craziest.
Craziest, yeah.
The one you want to take to the dance.
It's the one you want to take out for a slice of pizza.
In a malt. All right, Jeff, what do you got? What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Jordan didn't even answer. Oh, geez. So yeah, there's a couple things at play here. One, I kind of watched this like Sunday morning, probably not the best time to watch it. Two, I do think you have to be in the mindset to kind of like want to watch this type of movie. It's very clear they had a lot of fun. There's definitely, this is a warning for sure. Maybe this should have been at the beginning, but there's definitely a ton of stuff that just did not age well as far as like modern culture goes about what is acceptable. So
I did content warning at the beginning.
Yeah, I know, but like we didn't do that specific one, right? Like there's a lot of like slurs and things that maybe wouldn't be.
But these are bad people.
It's true.
Well, no, even during like the end credits, where they're showing like the gag stuff, and there's one where he just keeps saying a word over. Jason Statham keeps saying a word over. I'm like, oh, geez, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I get it. It was a different time and blah blah blah, but just a warning there. It's This movie is gonna get a thumbs up for me if I'm in the mood for it. If it were possible to give it a neutral in the middle, I would. But since we don't have that,
Nope.
I'm gonna give it a thumbs up, but a very reluctant thumbs up. And I mean, I'm personally probably not gonna watch this again. So I'm torn because there's a lot of really cool things in it. And then there's also a lot of really things where I was like, what is happening? And then again, like I said earlier, I think the cameos are fun, but like now that it's not 2009 and these people might not be as recognizable, like I didn't recognize a lot of them. I recognize some, but like, you know, I think that explains also why the acting's kind of all over the place. And there's so many, like, it's almost like they tried to like squeeze in all their friends to do something fun. So from that angle, I think it's cool. It's gonna get a hesitant thumbs up for me, and that's where I'll leave it at.
Brian, do you like this one better than the first one?
Yeah, only because it goes to the absurdity level. Like the first one I think is a great movie for what it is. I think it's entertaining. I think it's like, got the good characters and establishes everything. But I like that these guys took the status quo of a sequel and said, "Screw it, we're just gonna do whatever the hell we want," instead of just having to follow this basic plot structure. And that's half the reason I like it.
Okay.
Oh, but sometimes when movies do that, it's bad.
It doesn't always hit. It does.
Here's
You're
the
right.
thing. I haven't seen the first one, so like I feel like part of your reason why you like this one is because you saw the first one.
Right.
So
that maybe you should watch the first.
I'm going to say that while I thought it was shot really well and the story was really was told exactly what they set out to tell, and like I like the theme of the whole high voltage thing, I don't think it's like a movie I want to tell someone to go watch. It's not something I want to like I'll ever watch again. It's not something I want to tell people they should watch. I think it was a good action movie. I'm glad I watched it, but that's all it is. Like I don't really want to remember it.
I don't want to remember it.
I remember the cinematography of it is like what I think stood out to me. Just how they, everything was themed. It was a fun movie, but I wouldn't suggest it. So I'm going to give it a thumbs down. And Jordan, what do you got?
I think I'm gonna go thumbs down too.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So it's Crank High Voltage, not Crank 2 High Voltage. Crank High Voltage, 2 pals, and that's all we're gonna say about that.
So the people that wrote and directed this obviously also did the first Crank. They did the movie Gamer with Gerard Butler.
Oh boy.
Oh, makes sense.
They wrote Jonah Hex, but didn't direct it. They dropped out last minute because creative differences, and they directed the sequel to Ghost Rider.
Yeah, the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider sequel.
So they have a
Where
pedigree.
he's pissing fire.
Pedigree.
Next week, Jordan, what movie are we watching?
We're gonna be watching Return to Oz, the sequel to the classic movie The Wizard of Oz. This is very different than the original.
And why the hell would you pick this movie?
Because the tone, the drastic difference between the original Wizard of Oz movie and this one is insane. It's very dark. I'll just leave it at that for now. A lot of people even knew it was a thing.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed. I know that there is a couple really good comic books written about, like recently written for Wizard of Oz, Return to Oz, like all these different Oz sequels that I didn't know existed, unless maybe they're just made for the comic books. But one of my favorite artists does it, and those are really good.
Is that Magnello or whatever his name is?
Yeah. Oh, wait.
The guy that does like Hellboy?
No, sorry. It was Scotty Young. I was getting confused. It's Scotty Young does the art for it. He does a lot of Marvel stuff now. He does like Baby Marvel and stuff, but he does like a lot of like really unique art. So I really like his books. So next week we're gonna watch Return to Oz with Jordan, and I want to say that if you liked what you heard, please give us a like, please subscribe, please follow us on any podcast platform of your choice. Go ahead and find all those links to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter below in the show notes, or if you go to watchpals.show And you could also email us at watchpals.show@gmail.com if you'd like to contact us. Maybe send us an email. As I said in the last episode, if it's a good email, maybe we'll read it on the air. If it's not a good email, then I'll probably just hit the trash button. But I'll still read it first before I trash it. But, you know, in any case, thank you, everybody, for listening, tuning in. Thank you, Jeff, for being here.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for being here and for picking the movie this week.
Thanks for thumbs down in my pick, Chris.
I like I said, I was on the fence, but we can't do in between.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Jordan, thank you for being here.
Thanks for, yeah.
The sad clown of the Watch Pals.
Crank up those likes, everybody. Crank them up.
Crankourlikes.org.
Well, next week, please join us for the Return to Oz. Please set your watches
to 2.
To 2.
Set them to 2. See you later.
Set your watches to 2 and go to sleep. See you later.
Bye.
Set your watches to 2.